common multiple, or simply put, it is LCM. Back in the day, you've already done this. It's pretty simple when you're talking about just two numbers. In other words, find the least common multiple of 6 and 8. Well, that's not so bad because you sit there, I mean, you can do this in your head. I'm just going to do it like we did in 5th grade. Multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24. And then when you come to the first one they have in common, you know your least common multiple is 24. Not so bad, right? Well, children, you are in 8th grade, and obviously they wouldn't give you something that easy next. What about the least common multiple of 11, 12, and 18? 11, 12, and 18. Anybody caring to speculate what that is? Yes.
What do you want the answer?
I do want the answer.
396.
Stop looking in your book.
Looker!
It's hard
I already know what to do because you have to divide prime numbers.
Listen to Jeremy. Where did he get his mathematical ability from?
Yeah, my power.
Alright, because when it gets to these end with letters, sometimes you can do it in your head, sometimes you can't. But something like this, you need to follow these rules. The first rule is, just like with greatest common factor, you need to prime factorize. And hopefully you're relatively good at that. I'm not going to sit down and whatever. Prime factors of 11 are just 11. It's already prime. 12 is 4 times 3, so it's 2 times 2 times 3. And 18 is 6 times 3, which is 2 times 3 times 3. Okay, that's the prime factorization of 11, of 12, and of 18. Nice. Okay, now remember with greatest common factor, you took what they had in common. You know, in other words, how many 2's did they have in common? How many 3's did they have in common? Well, this greatest common factor, this is 1 because they don't have anything in common. But with this one, you take the group that has the most of each factor. Take the most of each factor. This is probably easier done than said. Starting with the 2's, you look at all 3 groups. Which one has the most 2's? This one, so you take 2 2's. Which group has the most 3's? This one, so you take 2 3's. And the only other factor that's up here we haven't covered is 11, and that group has the most 11's, which is 1. Once you do this, then, ladies and gentlemen, remultiplying this will give you your greatest common, least common multiple, sorry. Johnny? Which ends up being what? 4 times 9 times 11. 99 times 4 is what, Jeremy?
396.
396. That is the, if you were adding 3 fractions that had those as their denominator, that's what you'd have to use for the bottom of it. Shabbat. Now, obviously, we're not going to be doing numbers. We're actually going to be, wait, I should have, did I put down there? Multiply, remultiply. Let's just do this. And step 3, remultiply. Look at that. You know what I found out? Is current shellhammer on my desk is my little mouse. Will you take it, turn it upside down, and there's a little switch on it that turns it on and off. Will you turn it off? Thank you. That's perfect. Remultiply. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Lies, the internet lies.
I didn't look at that. I Now with letters and numbers, this is what it would look like. 10 a squared c4, 10a squared c to the 4th, and 15a cubed c cubed. Okay, you really don't have to do everything like this, but I'm going to break it down, and then you could say, well, I understand this, and I don't have to do this. If you were prime factorizing these, if you get 2 times 5, and then you get 2 A's and 4 C's. 15 is 3 times 5 and 3 A's and 3 C's. If you take the group that has the most of everything, well, you get a 2 times a 3 times a 5, right? 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 5. If they both have the same, you just take one. This is not. What group has the most A's? This one, which is A cubed. This group has the most C's, which is C to the 4th. So you multiply this, it's 30, A to the 3rd, C to the 4th. Now I'm relatively sure that you would not have to do all that. You could probably just look at it and tell me that, because the least common multiple of 10 and 15 is 30. You take the group that has the most A's, take the group that has the most C's, and see how that's completely backwards from greatest common factor, because with greatest common factor you take what they have in common, which is really the one that has the least amount. The greatest common factor of this would be 5. Wow. 5. I think something changed. I think my projector is loosened up and it just keeps moving.
Yeah, let me move the projector closer to your.
Because it looks like it's moving.
Well, I think it works better when it's farther away from the little bar, if that's what you were saying.
It looks like it's moving to the left.
It is sure.
Because there's all that space.
Anyways, back to what I was saying there. If you're doing greatest common factor, 5 is the greatest common factor of 10 and 15. You know, what do they have in common? The most they have in common is an A squared. And what are the most they common in C's is C cubed. This is the greatest common factor. This is the least common multiple. And a lot of people get those all mixed up just because of all the letters we speak. Perfect. Let me give you one more just to see if you got it. And you really don't have to. You don't have to do that whole factoring thing if you can see that. Sometimes you have to do it because, well, just wait a minute. 6p squared s cubed. 6p squared s cubed. 2m squared s squared. And 8m cubed p. Tell me what you think the least common multiple of those would be. Oh no. And then we have to do one incredibly hard one, and we'll call it a proverbial day. Note, they don't all have to have it. It's not, you're not talking about common multiples or common factors. You're talking about the least common one that they will actually go into. We're going to do both. Greatest common factor and the least common multiple. Least common multiple first. Again, I don't expect that you really need to draw out all of those. Say, Ty, what's the least common multiple of 6, 2, and 8? No, that's a factor. Least common multiple of 6, 2, and 8. Multiple, not factors.
24. Wait, I don't, go ahead.
I believe 24 is correct. What about of the letters? The groups that have the most would be Corinne Shellhammer. Which one has the most P's? Which one has the most S's? S cubed. Which one has the most M's? M cubed. That would be the least common multiple. The greatest common factor, for the numbers would be 2, and what do they all have in common after that? Nothing. This one doesn't have a P, this one doesn't have an S, and this one doesn't have an M. So 2 is the biggest factor that they have together, and this is the least common multiple. Yes, Brandon Norman.
How come half the stuff you learn in this, you don't really use in real life?
I would say you're way high in the half. I would go more like, how come about 90% of the stuff you learn you never use in real life? However, since Brandon, you don't know what your real life is going to be, you might be part of that 10% that uses some of this stuff, so you can't rule that out, otherwise nobody would ever learn it. Right? Like you teaching me how to shoot a hockey puck, I would never know how to learn how to do that, but I might need it sometime in the future. That makes no sense.
It's like, unless you don't like that
I'll go to
situation to shoot hockey.
It doesn't. All right, here's where it gets tough. Write this one down. I love this. 60x cubed plus 24x in parentheses and 45x to the fourth plus 18x squared. What would be the greatest common factor? Or the least common multiple, sorry. Let's go least common multiple. We're not doing the greatest common factor. Well, the first thing you have to do in this case is you're going to have to factor out because there's no factors even there. This is just one term, it's just kind of one term sort of thing. So what can you take out of these? What can you take out of this first term? Can you take anything higher?
12x.
What?
12x.
You take a 12 and an x out, and when you take that 12x out, you're left with 5x squared plus 2, correct? What can you take out of both of these?
9.
A 9. You take a 9 out, you're left with,
5.
oh wait, 9x squared, right? Sorry, take out that, you're left with 5x squared plus 2. Ah, that's why the book did it. Because now you have 2 that are in common. So you take take the one that has the most, and don't forget, really you need to think about this as being x times x out there. And this, so you've got, well, let's do it out. You've got 2 times 4, wait, sorry, 2 times 3 times 4 for 12, right?
2 times 2.
2 times 2 times 3, and this is 3 times x times x. Did I do this right?
But yeah.
So now, using what we know, which group has the most 2's? This one. Which group has the most 3's? This one. Which group has the most x's? This one. And which group has the most 5x squared plus 2's? They both have 1, so you have to take just one, 5x squared plus 2. Yeah, I know. I'm just having that sort of a day. So this is 9 times 4, so you end up with 36x squared times 5x squared plus 2. I suppose I have to remultiply that out, do I? Is that what the book does, Jeremy? No, they just left it like this. They left it like this. I don't think you'll have to do much of that. Thank goodness, because that gets a little. If I did ask you what would be the greatest common factor?
9x squared.
3x outside parentheses, 5x squared plus 2.
What do they have in common? The most 3's they have is 3. As far as the x's go, this one they both have 1 in common, and then you have the 5x squared plus 2 in common. I can tell you're very excited about that. I do have actually a worksheet I would like you to